nothing has gone wrong yet today. And so why don't I use that energy for my own interests and my own pursuits rather than immediately giving it to work? If you had told me a year ago that I would be doing this, I would have been like, no, I'm not. Hi, creative friends. My name's Krista. Welcome to my channel. If you are here, the whole reason we're here, that I have this channel, is to encourage people to be creative, even if they're not an artist, right? Professionally. I work a 9 to 5 job, not in a creative field at all. And I've really spent the last couple years reconnecting with the creative side of my life, trying new art forms, getting back to art forms I used to do as a kid. And it's made a lot of difference in improving my quality of life. And I want other people to experience that. And really, what I think is a barrier for so many people is just this identity, right? Like, I know so many people, past me included, who just don't see themselves as creatives. They don't see themselves as artists. And I think as humans, we all are. I think that is our fundamental humanness is being creative and creating things and making things. Part of it is our idea of what is creativity, right? Like I would argue, creativity could be like an engineer is creative, right? We don't think of it that way, but it's definitely creative. But also just I think if we don't feel like we can do something at a professional level yet, right? If we're not there yet, then we just don't think that we are a creative, but we are. And I want to encourage everyone to step into that and I embody that identity and be creative and explore that side of themselves. I do that by just dabbling in different art forms. I'm always trying something new. I'm always learning something new. And, I definitely have hobbies and art forms that I've maintained my entire life or for a long, long time. But also, like, I'm always trying something out to see if I want to keep doing it or not. And I think that's been a really big part of helping me feel more creative. I definitely felt for a few years there when I was kind of mired down in grad school and reading so much research and then establishing my career. I was so like productivity and business and science focused because I had to be, right? That was definitely was needed in that time of my life that I stopped really identifying as a creative person, even though my entire life growing up, I was always dancing and making little sculptures and trying to write stories and all these things. Then once I was in grad school, started to see myself much more like left brained, right? Which I am glad that I can tap into that side of myself, but that's not all of who I am. So then it really took me a few years after being out of grad school and being in my career to start to see myself differently and start to accept and realize the fact that I am an artsy creative person, even if that's not the path that my career has taken. Yeah, that's why we're here. What we are going over today are 3 habits that really helped me spark my creativity again after years of really not being in touch with that side of myself. And these are things that I try to do most days, maybe not every single day, but most days that have really helped me kind of put one foot in front of the other creatively and kind of keep the process flowing. Everyone's different. What may work for me may not work for you. You may have other habits that really help keep you in a creative space that I haven't even thought about yet, right? Maybe I can learn from you. But these are 3 things that have really helped me, and I just want to share them. Number one habit that has helped me spark my creativity is reading. I've always been a reader. I've been a reader my whole life, but like a lot of people, when I was in school, like university and grad school in particular, I had a really hard time continuing the habit of reading for pleasure. And it's taken me kind of a few years after graduating to be able to get back to that. And now I can kind of confidently say that I'm reading a lot again, or often, I should say, right? I don't really think about the quantity of what I'm reading, but I think about frequency and time spent. So reading has really helped me spark my creativity. And there are, I think, a few reasons that reading is so powerful for creativity. I think the biggest one for me that I noticed almost immediately was its ability to help me regain my focus. I know all of us have attention spans that we feel like have just like gone poof, right? We just feel like our attention spans are gone these days. And yeah, I've definitely felt like that too. And I really had to kind of rebuild my attention span from ground zero after a lot of years of having to be on the internet a lot for my work and having to use social media and then just like stress and news and all these things going on. And reading was the number one thing that helped me feel like I was really taking a huge step forward in getting my attention span and my ability to drop into focus back. Not only has reading helped me feel like I can stay focused for longer periods of time, but it's helped make it me feel like I can drop into that focus zone or that flow state faster than before. Whereas when I kind of first started reading again after a long, long break or reading for pleasure, I would feel like my mind would start wandering not even half a page in, right? I would try to read and I would be thinking about the fact that I was reading, and then my mind would start to wander, and I would have the urge to start a conversation with my husband or look at my phone or go on my computer or something. And now that I kind of kept doing it, even though it felt like I was losing focus, I feel like I can drop into a book and start reading again and am able to focus much more quickly than before and stay focused for a longer period of time. So reading has really helped my attention span, and that helps with creativity, with just being able to like continue doing what you're doing and stay focused on the task at hand. Also, especially I love to read classics. That's my favorite thing to read. So I'm holding up an example of The Crucible because I love reading plays in particular. So this is a really classic piece of theater that I found very inspiring in terms of how you connect historical events to what you're experiencing now, right? And so I found that really interesting, even though I'm probably not going to make any art about the Salem witch trials. I thought there was a lot to be learned in here as a creative about, how you make connections between historical events and what you're going through right now as the artist. There was a lot to pick up from that. And I think that's what's so valuable about classics is that you can pick up techniques, right? If you're a writer, obviously you can pick up like prose techniques, storytelling techniques, pacing, things like that. But also even if you're working in other disciplines, right? It can give you ideas of themes you want to explore. A big theme in The Crucible is this idea of mass panic, right? How the community kind of moves as one and it kind of absorbs the people who might think slightly differently. They kind of get absorbed into this group think. And that's something that's really powerful across art forms. So even if I'm not going to write a play, I'm not going to write a play about the Salem witch trials, this idea of mass thinking and group think almost could show up in a piece of art. It could show up in a dance. It could show up in music, right? And so it helps you think about themes that you want to explore. Also, just like you can get aesthetically inspired too. I want to say I'm very aesthetically inspired by this era of American history. But like right now, I'm reading 100 Years of Solitude, reading in Spanish. And, this idea of like the texture and aesthetic of South American magical realism could show up in visual art that I'm making, right? That could be something that I would want to explore. So reading has definitely helped me, one, increase my focus. It's helped me just reading classics in particular has helped me just watch masters of their craft do what they do and feel inspired. It's helped me come up with themes that I think are interesting to explore in art. It's helped me think more deeply about things. So that's why I think reading has been so impactful for improving my creativity. The second habit that I have that has really helped me feel more creative is kind of like reading. It has multiple ways that it's working. Is I like to go for walks and take photos while I walk. I wouldn't consider photography to be an art form I'm pursuing right now. I'm just taking little iPhone photos. However, the reason that it is so good for my creativity is one, I'm going outside, right? I'm getting some air. I'm not just in my four walls of my apartment. Two, I'm going for a walk. I'm getting some, endorphins going. That physical activity can help clear your mind. It can help you focus better. There's some research out there that, people's attention span seems to be improved after some cardiovascular activity. So there's definitely that. And then taking photos while I walk helps me notice, right? It helps me observe my environment and find things that I think are beautiful that otherwise I might just be so focused about going about my day that I might not notice. So I take a lot of photos right now, it's spring, so I take a lot of photos of flowers that are growing around the neighborhood. So that's something I like to do every spring. And so it helps me just notice colors that I think are interesting, notice composition, right? Even when I take the photo, deciding how I center the flower in there is kind of helping me practice composition, especially because I'm learning to draw right now. So it's kind of helping me practice, where did I put the flower? What else is going on in the image? That's definitely something that's interesting. It helps me notice shapes too. It's really just kind of helped hone my eye for what I think is interesting to look at and I would want to show up in my art. And also, it just gives me material to practice, right? So I'm learning how to draw. And so something I've been doing lately is I go outside, I take photos of things I see around, and then later that day or that week, I kind of look through my photos and I choose one of those photos to try to draw. So, for example, here is a flower that I found in my neighborhood. I'm not good at drawing. Please don't judge the quality of this artwork. I am a beginner. I am learning. That's why we are all here, is to talk about being comfortable being beginners, being comfortable doing art, even if we're not professional, right? So with that being said, don't be mean about my beginner drawing. So I found this flower in my neighborhood. Here's a photo. Here's the photo I took. It's a beautiful flower. It's also like a neighborhood flower, right? It's not like a prize winning rose or anything, but I really liked it. I liked the texture of it. I liked how the green leaves kind of were composed behind it. I thought it created a very interesting image. So I tried to draw it, and it's still in progress. I'm still working on the shading of this. And so I got to practice drawing, and I got to practice drawing what I saw in my environment. And I had some emotional attachment to it because I noticed the flower. I thought it was pretty. I took the photo. I chose the composition of the photo, right? So it just gives me more material to practice my art because sometimes I get a little bit bored of like the art prompts in books or things like that. So it gives me more material to practice. And yeah, so it's kind of helps me break through that art block sometimes where I don't know what to draw. Well, I can just draw something that I noticed around my neighborhood. So that is the second habit, going out for a walk and taking photos. And the third habit, you don't have to do this. It has worked for me. If you had told me a year ago that I would be doing this, I would have been like, no, I'm not. You don't have to do it. Everyone has different things. But I have been waking up early to work on art before I start my workday. So I clock in at 9, but from when I wake up at 6:30, I take like a few minutes to, brush my teeth, drink my coffee, all that stuff. After that, I am practicing different art forms until 9 when I clock in. So this morning, for example, I worked on drawing first thing. That was the first thing I did. And then I switched to coding and programming and I did that. And then I clocked in at 9. I've had days where maybe I didn't feel like creating the entire 2 hours, right? I've had days where I read during that time or something like that. Although the risk of me falling asleep while reading, if I'm doing it that early in the morning, is very, very high. So I try not to do that. But I try to use that time for me. And I'm not a morning person. If you had told me that I was waking up at 6:30 before, I would have been like, no, I'm not. I don't do that. I'm a night owl. I'm still a night owl. However, I have to turn on the light for my pet geckos. They have to get their light turned on at a certain time. So I have to get up. And after a while, I was noticing that I was just kind of like ready to start my day after I got up and went out to the living room and turned on their light, all of that, it was kind of enough to kind of get me woken up for the day. And so I had this day where I was like, well, I could sign into work early and then I could clock out early. Like that would be nice. But then I was like, well, even better would be if I took the time where my brain is the freshest, right? I haven't had a chance to get tired yet. Nothing has made me mad today or tired me out or anything. Why don't I use my fresh brain energy for me? So for stuff that I'm interested in doing, that's really what kind of sparked me to start using my morning time to work on art. So lately it's been drawing and coding, although a few days ago I did some writing, which I wouldn't say writing is something I'm actively spending a lot of time on right now, but I did some writing the other day because I felt like it. You could color, you could do a craft project, like I don't know that I'm ever gonna wanna go back, like, to be one of those, like, 5 a.m. productivity people because I get really annoyed by that messaging. For me, it's not about optimizing being, like, the most productive person. It's really about this is when my brain is the freshest, right? Nothing has gone wrong yet today. And so why don't I use that energy for my own interests and my own pursuits rather than immediately giving it to work? That's how I look at it. And that's been the framing that has really helped me stay consistent with it. And it's really nice to kind of start my day off on me. So I've been really, really enjoying that. That's been really helpful. And it kind of doing it first thing in the morning kind of helps get like the creative energy flowing. If anyone's read The Artist's Way, I haven't read the whole thing, but I know that she is very about doing your morning pages, right? And I think it's kind of the same idea is just the act of having that be the first thing you do kind of primes you for the rest of the day to be creative. And it kind of sends a message to yourself and your brain and the universe, if you think that way, that, okay, I'm being creative today, but you do it every day. And so then therefore it kind of creates this cycle of always being creative. So I have been loving this lately. You don't have to do it. This is not a prescription. This is just things that have worked for me that might work for some people. Take what works for you. Don't worry about the rest of it. I would love to hear if you've been in this process too of kind of getting back to your creativity, especially if you have like a regular non-creative 9 to 5 job. I want to hear what's been working for you. Let me know in the comments. If you try anything that I said, I want to hear how it goes for you. Thanks for being here, everyone. I'll see you soon.